Well, you guys, today we're taking a look at how to install any operating system like a pro over the internet, and I'll show you how to do it with iventoy. And we're going to be installing this onto a NAS. Believe it or not, we're going to be able to install operating systems on any device on our local network, and we're going to be using our Synology NAS. And what we're going to do is set up Ubuntu Server on our Synology NAS, and then we're going to install iventoy onto that Ubuntu Server. This will all be running on a virtual machine on our Synology NAS. Now, you need to make sure that your NAS is capable of running virtual machines. So we're going to be using Ubuntu Server, and this is 24.04.1 LTS, and we'll download this 2.6 gigabytes, and we'll be using this as our server. So first off, what you'll need to do is you're going to go to your NAS and then go to your package center where you're going to install your virtual machine software. Now, other network attached storage devices will have their own different types of virtual machine software. We're going to be using the Synology Virtual Machine Manager. So let's go ahead and click on this, and we're going to go ahead and install this onto our Synology NAS. So this will go ahead and start to install the Virtual Machine Manager, and this will allow us to run virtual machines on our NAS. Now, obviously, your NAS is going to have enough memory and also plenty of processing power to be able to run your virtual machines on. So make sure you get that checked out to make sure it's capable of doing that. So let's go ahead and open up the Virtual Machine Manager here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the wizard here. So let's click Next here. And what we're going to do is leave this as is, leave these enabled and eligible here. So what we'll do is we'll go Next here. Now, if you don't have a network attached storage device, you can always use a mini PC or an old computer and use that as a server and do it that way if you want to. So you can see here, I'm just going to select the whole volume here, and we're going to go ahead and click Next again. And this will go ahead and start to load up the software and go ahead and install it onto our system. So let me go ahead and speed this process up, and we'll move on to the next step. So now we can click Finish, and that means we've now installed our Virtual Machine Manager. So we click Finish here, and we can move on to the next step of setting it up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here we have our host, our virtual machine, our storage, and you can see the CPU and RAM and all that sort of stuff right here. So let's go ahead and take a look on the side panel here, because on the side panel we have Overview, Virtual Machine, Cluster, Storage, Network, Image, Protection, Settings, and so on. So to get this running properly, we need to have a virtual machine installed on here because we don't have one, and we're going to be using the Ubuntu Server. So for that, we need to have an ISO image for Ubuntu Server, which is what we've just downloaded. So let's click on Image here, and we can now click on Add File. This is going to add the ISO file that we've just downloaded, and you can upload it from your computer here. So let's go ahead and click From Computer, and this will then open up a box, and you can then say where your ISO file is. I've got mine here. I've got a couple of them here. But what we're going to do is we're going to select the Ubuntu server file. Now we can click Next. And now we need to select here the storage. So again, if you've set your storage up different, you can do, but I'm just going to use what I've got here. So I'm going to select that here and click Done. And what we're going to do is now we're going to let that do its thing. It will take a bit of time, and you can see it's uploading the file, and it's 2.6 gigabytes in size, so it's going to take a bit of time to upload depending on your speed. You can see here creating the file, so it's going to take a bit of time to sort that out. And once that's done, you've also got right next to it Download Synology Guest Tool. You can install that after you've installed your server, which is advisable, but we can do that in another video. So for this one, what we're going to do here now is we're going to go to Virtual Machine, and we're going to create our first virtual machine. You can create a Microsoft Windows system, Linux, and you can see with Linux, this is going to be either Debian, Ubuntu, and all the other choices that you have available. So we're just going to select this right here because we're going for Ubuntu. And now we need to give our virtual machine a name. So I'm just going to call this Ubuntu VM, something like that. So let's go ahead and type that out. And we got that done. CPUs, obviously, we're just going to put in here 2 CPUs. And memory, we're going to give it, say, 4 gigabytes. Now, if you don't have a lot, you might need to give that less, and you may need to change the CPUs to suit your NAS. Now, for the video card, I changed that to VGA because the VM VGA did not work well for me, so I just changed it after I'd done all of these settings. So you'll see me click next here, but I did go back in and make a change because it wouldn't boot properly. So you might need to do that with your NAS. But everyone's going to have different settings, so just go through and have a play around until you get a happy medium for your setup. So I'm going to give this 30 gigabytes of storage for this server, and this will also contain all of our ISOs. So depending on what you're going to be doing with your particular server will determine how much space you need. We can leave the default VM network setting right here, and we can go ahead and we can have a look at the drop down and click next. So here we need to get our ISO file for boot up, and we can browse for that or use the drop down right here and select our file. And then we also have additional ISO file here, and you can see it says unmounted, so we can just select our ISO file in the drop down menu again. So let's go ahead and do that. Auto start, it says no, but again, you can make changes to yours if you want to. I'm going to make a change to my setting here, so I'm just going to go quickly to the drop down here and change this to last state. So that's done. And the firmware will be Legacy BIOS recommended, and you can also see here the keyboard layout and all the other settings here. So we should be okay here now. So what I'm going to do is click next here, and we can move on to the next step. So local users, as you can see, we do have the admin account here and my personal account. So I'm going to check both of those. And you can see for local users and local groups, you can set this up how yours will be. Yours will be different to mine. So I'm check marking both of those. And there's the overall settings right here. I did actually go back in, like I said, and change the video card to VGA. There is an option on the drop down menu because I found it wasn't booting up properly. So we can power on the virtual machine after the creation as well by clicking this one right here. And we can now click done. And what this is going to go ahead and do is it's going to create our virtual machine. You can see it here. It's now doing its thing. And there we go. So what we can do here is we can load this up and we can now power this on. And once we power it on like it's doing now, we can then click on connect, and this will connect to our virtual machine, and we'll be able to look at the screen through this panel right here. You can see the memory getting used here down the bottom. And what we'll do here is we're going to click on connect, and this will open up the black screen here. And we're going to go ahead and click on try and install Ubuntu Server. Now, this is going to run a little bit slower because we are running a virtual machine on our NAS, which is our network attached storage. And again, basically, depending on how fast your NAS is will determine how quick this loads up and how fast it goes through the installation. This is all to do with the hardware specifications of your NAS. So it's important that you have a pretty decent NAS to be able to do this. Otherwise, you can choose another option like an old PC, or you can choose one of those old Dell Optiplexes or a mini PC or something like that, or even one of those tiny PCs to run a little network like this on your system. You can put Ubuntu Server on there and put iventoy on there and run all your installations from there if you wanted to. This is just another option available to you. So this might freeze for a little while here. Do not panic. It does take a bit of time, so be patient and let it do its thing. And now you should see something like this right here. It's loading up here, it's connecting. And once this does its thing, it will give you this option right here, which is choosing your language. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to be choosing English United Kingdom. And we can click on continue here. And now we can continue without updating, or we can update to the new installer if you want to right at this point. We can do that at the end. So I'm just going to continue without updating right here. And that's what we're going to be doing right here. So let's go ahead and click on continue without updating. Or if you want to update to the new installer right now, you can do. It might take a bit of time. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to continue without updating, and then we can do that afterwards once we get to our desktop, once we've finished. So once we've got this done, we can now select our keyboard configuration, and you can see our variant here. It's all English UK. So we can now click done, and now we can click on choose the base for the installation, and that's going to be Ubuntu Server, or you've got Ubuntu minimized, and we can also search for third-party drivers, and you can use your tab key to tab through the options available here on your keyboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and then tab down to search for third-party drivers, just in case it does need some during the installation process. And we're going for Ubuntu Server here rather than the minimized, but you can use the minimized if you want to. Now it's going to give you your IP address right here, so make note of that because that will be the IP that you're going to be using. And you can also see our Ethernet connection right there. I've blurred out the MAC address, but basically that is what we're going to be using here. So the proxy address is right here. We're just going to click done here, and we can click done again and move on to the next step. So now we can click on continue here because it's just setting this all up. And now we can use the entire disk if we want to, and we can choose our disk right here. And you can see the disk has a number on it, and it says local disk and 30 gigabytes. And that's because we give it 30 gigabytes. You need to make sure that's the right disk right here. And now we can move on to the next step. Now you've got a summary of all the settings that we've just set up right here. And now we can click done. And once we've done this, we can click continue. And now we get the option to set up our profile configuration. So let's go ahead and do that right here. I'm just going to call this Britec here, if I could spell that right. There we go. And give the server a name. So let's just call this. So we're going to call this Ubuntu, and we can call that something like that. And you can call yours whatever you like here. So let's do that right here. And we can put VM on there if we wanted to. There we go. And we can now pick a username. So let's go ahead and pick our username, and you can use your tab key to go down to the next step here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to call this Britec again, and we want to give this a strong password because this is for our server. So you want to make sure it's nice and secure. So let's go ahead and put a password in here. And again, we just have to confirm that password, and then we can press done by using the tab key and press enter and move on to the next bit. So let's go ahead and do that. And there we go. So now we can choose whether we want to enable Ubuntu Pro. We don't want to do that, so we're going to skip for now. And again, we can install Open SSH server here, which is what we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little cross in there by pressing the space bar. And now we can click on done, and this will go ahead and move on to the next bit. So now we're going to go ahead and continue. And we need to skip all this stuff. We don't need this, so click done. This is if you want to install other stuff onto your server. You know, you can go ahead and do that from here if you wanted to, like Nextcloud and things like that. Now, it will take a bit of time here because it's going to build the server now, so just be patient. I will try and speed this process up, but it will take a bit of time to set this part up. Once that's done, we can click on Reboot Now. So it's going to go ahead and start rebooting. And again, you're going to take some time. It's going to go ahead. I'm doing some updates here. And that will be sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. And we'll go ahead and let that happen. So that's all done. And what we're going to need to do now is we need to log into your account. And once you've logged in, you should see something look like this. And this is where we can now start to think about installing iventoy on here. And there's a free version of iventoy, which you can use. And this is going to be great for PC repair techs or people that are installing operating systems all the time. And you can then install these over the network. So this is the command you're going to need here. And basically, this is going to pull down iventoy from their GitHub server. And then we need to unpack it. So we can use this command right here to unpack the tar file that we downloaded. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see that's now unpacked. And now we can type ls, and this will give us the directory where we just unpacked it. So we need to now change that to that directory. So let's go change directory by cd iventoy and then the path of your directory. And now we can type sudo space /iventoy.sh space start, and this will start the service. So this will then start the service on our server. So iventoy will then be installed and started. So you can see now it's saying, please open up your browser and visit that IP address. So my IP address was that which I talked about earlier on in the video, which I told you to write down, and you need to make sure you put the colon 26,000. That's the port it uses. And now we should see something looking like this on our browser on our computer. So we just accessed iventoy on our server, on our Ubuntu server, on our NAS. And this is what we're looking at right here. So now we've got some settings here that you can have a look at. And you can see we have some configuration here. And you've got your DHCP server mode. It's saying internal at the moment. And you can see boot configuration. And we don't have any ISO files on here, but we'll go ahead and do those. But you can see here under the boot configuration DHCP server mode, it says internal. And you can change this if you wanted to go external as well on the drop down there. And you would have to do some other configuration here, but that's the internal setting right there. So we're going to be doing all this on our local network and installing basically onto virtual machines, onto other devices that are on the local network. If you've got them plugged into the network, they will be able to be installed, like all of the operating systems will be able to be installed on those devices by using this method. So what we need to do here now is we need to put some ISO files inside here, and I'll show you how we can go about doing that by using a piece of software called WinSCP. So we're going to download this. It's a free piece of software. I'm going to go ahead and install this. It says typical installation. So let's go ahead and do that right here and go next. And you've got Commander, and we've also got Explorer here. I'm going to leave this on Commander. And this just basically gives you two panels. Left, which is your local directory, which will be your computer, and on the right, which will be your server. So now we can launch WinSCP. And you need to put in your details for your server, which is your Ubuntu server. Put those details in there with the IP address and a port number of 22 and click login. Now on the left hand side is your computer, and on the right hand side, which is your Ubuntu server. And you can see iventoy directory right there. So let's go inside there, and you should see a folder called ISO, and this is where you're going to drop all of your ISOs into. So let's go ahead and I'll navigate to a couple of ISOs here, say Windows 11 23H2, and we can drag that over, and it will now transfer that over from my downloads folder where it was to the ISO folder on my Ubuntu server. And when I refresh it on iventoy here, you can see they are now showing up. So what we need to do first is we need to make sure we start this inside iventoy here. And if you go to boot information, click that green button, and it's now running. You can turn this off when you're finished with it, but it will be running. And if I go ahead and create a virtual machine here on my local network, I can go ahead and select no, I'll install the operating system later, because we don't need to, because we are going to install it over the network. I'm going to choose Windows 11 here, choose a place to store it. I'm going to store it in a location on another drive, and we need to encrypt that drive again. And we're going to click all here and put in a password here. And let's go ahead and do that. Now remember, it's not going to be booting from the ISO that we navigate to the CD-ROM drive in here. It's going to be coming across the network. So we'll just leave that as default for now and give it some hardware changes here. 16 gigs of RAM, and we can change the the threads to 4. We've got no ISO selected because we're going to be installing this over the network. So we need to change this to bridge connection, and we now click finish. And what we can do now is power on the virtual machine for the first time. And what that should do is detect iventoy on our server, which is sitting on a Ubuntu server on our network attached storage. So we're going to go ahead and do that right here. You can see there's no ISO right here and we don't need it. So let's go ahead and fire this up, power it on and say yes right there. And there we go. It's now going off and finding our Pixie here. So there we go. It's detected it. And it's now loading up the screen. And there we go. We have iventoy right here. And I have 2 ISOs and I can install Windows on here. And there's also Linux Mint on there as well. And you can put as many as you like on your server. And I could just click on this one right here and it'll go ahead and install this across the network. Anyway, I hope this video has been some sort of use to you. If you are a PC tech and you want to install Windows and you want to install Linux and other operating systems over the network, this is a really easy way of doing it. And you can even use a mini PC or even an old PC to use as your Ubuntu server if you don't have a network attached storage device like this. Anyway, that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Quick shout out to my YouTube members. I appreciate the support and I shall catch you in the very next video, or I'll see you on the Discord server for a chat. Bye for now.